It's still a barren wasteland after all of this time, but they said it was so important that they get this land.
Yep, weeds, feral cats, and sometimes storm debris when there have been a lot of big storms. That's all that has happened on the land that was taken by eminent domain.
And this land, it was taken through the Kelo ruling. It complemented the nearby Pfizer facility. And they did this because, Pfizer, they received a generous package of financial incentives and tax breaks to lure it to New London. It closed its facility there in 2010. And so all of this revenue that they enacted this eminent domain in order to seize this land, they're not actually getting any of this revenue. I mean, it makes me scratch my head like, well, what was the point of all of this?
Mm-hmm. Well, Pfizer was getting tax breaks, and the tax breaks ended, and then Pfizer moved because they didn't have an incentive to stay like the homeowners that actually lived there. And this used to be a thriving, small waterfront neighborhood, like lots of other waterfront neighborhoods in New England, completely destroyed by eminent domain. And what was really distressing was that this was completely predictable. One of the arguments that we made throughout the case is this project will never be built. There is no market for this project. The developer at the time admitted that it was not going to build anything on the land taken by eminent domain for the foreseeable future. And the courts knew this, and they said, well, there's a possibility that there will be economic development. And according to the U.S. Supreme Court, the possibility of future tax dollars is good enough to satisfy the U.S. Constitution, which is just an amazing and appalling ruling.
Because that means they could come after, I mean, basically because of that ruling, they can come after anybody's land.
Absolutely. And that was actually the point that Justice O'Connor was making when she asked, does that mean that they can always take a Motel 6 for a Ritz-Carlton? And the lawyer for the city of New London said, yes, it does.
Wow. Wow. So if you have land that not for right of way, not for anything like that, but just if somebody wants your land and they can promise the city more money on it, your rights are irrelevant.
They can promise that there might be more taxes.
That's right, might even be more. This is, I mean, how many, in the wake of this decision, I shudder to think what the impact has been on other eminent domain cases. I mean, how has this trickled down? I mean, and what's the effect been after this ruling?
Well, there have been two things going on. One is a very good thing, which is there was a tremendous backlash against this. People were really horrified, and there was just an unprecedented reaction among the states because it was clear that the federal constitution was no longer going to provide any protection, and states mostly stepped in. 44 states changed their laws in the wake of this decision, which is a lot.
Yeah.
But under federal law, you are still completely and utterly out of luck. So nobody has won a case under federal law since this decision came down. And in some states, notably New York, and actually kind of strangely Colorado, there is a huge amount of eminent domain abuse going on. So what you have now is no federal protection, and it's just all up to the states. So some states are great, some states are okay, some states are terrible. And it all just depends on where you live, whether your property rights are protected.